All right, so we move on swiftly after that very interesting conversation with the governor of Edo State, Comrade Adams Oshomole. Now we look at the national conference. It's been on for 2 weeks, going into its third week now. It has failed to capture the imagination of some Nigerians, and some people are quite excited by the level of conversation, the heated debate that has been going on, and so on and so forth. Some people have been concerned about the issue of how things are being managed, especially the issue of how they will vote and how they will take decision within the national conference. To discuss all of these and more with us on this program this morning, I've got the pleasure of the company of Ebon Olu Adeborowa, who is a legal practitioner. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
And on my left-hand side is Zaka Bala, who's a social commentator. Good to have you here this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yes. Let me start with you, Ebon. When you look at all of the conversation that has happened thus far at the national conference, one of the most heated debate has been on the issue of should we follow the instruction of the president and we must have 75% saying yay, or we should do a 2/3 majority to take decisions. And even one senior advocate who was here on Sunrise during the course of the week says it's supposed to just be a simple majority because all of the decision of national conference is going to either be sent for a national referendum or to the National Assembly for ratification before it becomes law. What is your thought?
I think that what we must understand is that this national conference was designed to fail. It's a booby trap designed by the president to boost his support base for the 2015 elections. You know, the agitation for national conference is not a matter of today. It's been on over 20 years now. And
were you part of those? I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you
yes,
part of
all
those
of us
that
were.
wanted
Yes,
it?
oh,
So
surely.
why
And
would you
this-
now see one
This
as an
is what I'm
opportunity and say
explaining,
no?
that the president just took advantage and jumped into our boat as a means of gathering support, having seen the groundswell of opposition to his re-election campaign. So he thought that the best way to buy himself into the mind of Nigerians, activists, and indeed the majority of our people, is to sing this song of national conference in a corrupted sense, deviating from what we had been agitating for. If you look at the national conference, at least look at the composition. Federal government has 30 delegates. Retired permanent secretaries have delegates, retired civil servants, retired local government chairmen, retired police officers, retired speakers. The national conference has been packed filled with government delegates. State governors have 109 delegates. So all we have there is that they did this thing deliberately as a way of shutting us up. They said, "Oh, you wanted national conference, now we have given it to you." And of course, nothing is going to come out of it because the conference came after the INEC had released its own timetable for 2015 elections. And the conference is supposed to last for 3 months. We're almost into a whole month. Nothing has been done. So this was just a trick by the president, with all respect, to buy into the mind of the civil society and indeed the ethnic organizations as a way of supporting himself. But having said that, if you look at the declaration setting up the national conference, it says, we set you up to come and talk. Just talk and talk. When you finish the talking, send your deliberation to us, and we'll look at how we can incorporate it into the Constitution. And that's the end of it. Because the National Assembly itself has its own committee that is working on the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. So everything we go into the bedroom of the president, a committee will be set up to write a white paper. After the white paper, it will be forwarded to the National Assembly, and it will end there. So it's a jamboree. But even if it's a jamboree and they are gathered to discuss, there is no way you can expect 75% of this collection of people with divergent interests to be able to agree on a particular point. Because the point that we're going to talk about is state police. We're going to talk about resource control. We're going to talk about federalism. Why should everybody go to Abuja to be heard? Why should so much resources be entrusted to the federal system and the regions are suffering? The ethnic areas are not working. Why must I be a minister in order to be relevant? Why must the federal government control power? Why shouldn't a local government generate power on its own and put his people on electricity. Those are issues that are going to be discussed, and they're going to be contentious. So that there is no way you can get 75% of a consensus on those knotty issues. And the president knew. That's why he pushed that agenda onto them, knowing that there will be no opportunity for them to reach that consensus. And beyond that, look at what is going on now. You pay 130,000 naira to each delegate per day. Everybody is using this tile to get more money. I'm sorry, with respect to many of the delegates who are there, who are well-to-do, and some who have even rejected the money. What we are going to see at the end of the day is that they will come and ask for extension. I mean, who doesn't want to earn 130,000 per day for doing nothing? And people go there to sleep. People go there to quarrel. We have had 2 weeks of no action. And then salaries go on 4 million per month. And we have been blaming the National Assembly for whipping off our economy with all their largesse. So I think that the conference was not meant to succeed from day one. This is not what we agitated for. It was not a conference of ex-generals, of sleeping people, of aged people, elder statesmen. I'm sorry, with respect. When you look at the population of Nigeria, by the 2011 census, we said the greater percentage of our people, about 70-something%, are from the ages 17 to 39. Go and look at the conference now. People who have been ministers in the 1970s, people who have more or less ruled this country, are still the people who will determine what will happen to us. So I think that we should just look at this conference as an attempt by the president to show up his political agenda for 2015. That's all I see.
Okay, Zaka, what's your own thought on the same issue of the voting?
Pattern.
Well, before the voting, first of all, generally, they've spent 2 weeks, right? I think to me it's very interesting to me because it has revealed so many things. I've just seen a coloration, you know, of different ideologies, right, coming together. But I've listened to others, I've watched others, like where people like Awo were talking in 1958 in Lancaster, right? I followed Nikki Toby's political reform conference. I even read so much about what happened during the Belgore committee and the rest. But what I've seen is, to me, this one is more dynamic in the sense that people really came out and you could have an understanding of the divergence of Nigeria. Because there is this saying that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh.
Yes.
From the kind of ways people are spitting, you will now have an understanding that the diversity that is supposed to be our strength, if it is not properly managed, right, it is going to be the biggest problem for us. Then, like you asked a question about consensus. I mean 75%. I think to be honest, 75% it's going to be a difficult percentage to achieve. But in national interest, we just need to ask basic questions. Is unemployment not a national embarrassment and needs to be discussed? The answer is yes. Is capital flight, due to decayed educational system, not a national problem and an embarrassment to Nigeria? The answer is yes, and it needs to be discussed. What about medical tourism? We look at all this. So if we are there in national interest, the first thing people need to do is to remove primordial sentiments. That's my approach. To remove primordial sentiments and also remove personal interest or aspiration. And once we do that, then you will begin to see what I can best describe as an integrative bargain or discussion. And most of the time when you embark on that, you will come up with a win-win situation. And a win-win situation simply means you are on this side of the divide, I am on this side. But the solution is where? In the center.
So would you therefore agree with those who are proposing a two-thirds majority?
Two-thirds majority makes sense. Because this time around, to me, even if it is symbolic, look at the substance. Because, okay, if for any reason we say unemployment, right, as a macroeconomic index, is a problem in Nigeria today. So if 75% say it's not an issue, does it mean we won't accept that what happened with the Nigerian Immigration Services employment has caused a worldwide embarrassment to Nigeria. So when you look at it, and that's why sometimes we need to be very careful. Certain things will just have to just be viewed as technical semantics.
But if we
And
were
even-
to take your word for it, then it will seem as if when you look at what are the key issues that affect the nation that are to be described as national interest,
Yes.
it will seem like we should even get consensus of close to 80% to deal with such, and to have agreement. Because if you talk of corruption, virtually every Nigerian will say corruption is the bane, impunity is the bane of our existence in Nigeria, and things of that nature. So shouldn't we be able to muster 70, 80%?
If I were corrupt, I wouldn't agree with you, because for me, I'm doing business. I'm not corrupt.
Exactly, and that's why I said some people went there with inflexible, rigid positions. And one way or the other, that has to be chiseled. Like as my colleague was saying, he was talking about even age bracket. For somebody like me, to be honest, that age bracket is not an issue. The reason why I'm saying this is this. You don't need to tell a man of 75 years and above that his time is fast running out if you are a youth. Rather, take advantage of that interaction you are going to have with him to scoop as much as you can.
But when you
from his
don't have
experience.
interaction because you're excluded from opportunity of conversation.
You see, it depends. Let me tell you, let me explain it clearly. As far as I'm concerned, a balazaka does not need to be there for this conference to succeed, because I'm in my 40s, right? But I have the belief that 1 or 2 Nigerians in their 40s are already there. And if they are there in the interest of the the general youth, it's enough. Bala must not make statements there. And what I'm trying to say is, when you sit with elders, these matured people, or whether you call them tired legs, there is so much to scoop. What you would rather do is...
I'm sorry, I'll have to interject for 1 second. I'll need to ask a few questions, but just to take you up, some people who are elderly as well.
Yes.
I watched Robert Clark, SAN,
Yes.
during the course of this week, and he's saying these are the same people that put us where we are. These are the same people that seem to be bereft of ideas that has led to the level of impunity, corruption, and decadence in our education and so on. And these are the same people you're asking to come up with fresh ideas. Where will they come with fresh ideas?
And that was why I said, when you sit before elders, and that was why I analyzed it. I said,
But don't you think it depends on the quality of the elders you're talking about?
What are you talking about? By the time you sweep these people out of Nigeria, who are those remaining? We already said members of the Senate are not good enough. We said members of House of Reps are not good enough. The governors are not good enough. Commission. Who else are we talking? But what I'm trying to say is, when you sit with the elders, that is the best. Like I said, they know already their time is running out. So you must move forward as a youth. Scoop as much as you can. And when we talk about scooping, in the presence of such people, what you need to do, learn from the mistakes they've made. If they made mistakes, avoid those loopholes. And where they got it right, what you should do is to improve. Let me give you simple examples. Don't you think it's something that you can best describe as a great privilege to be in the same conference as a youth, even if Bala is not there? As if I have one youth that is there, is it not a great privilege that I will have a youth sitting with somebody like Amayanabo of Tuon Brass, somebody sitting with General Alani Akiri Nade, somebody sitting with a Tankoyaka side there? Do you know how much you will scoop? And I'm telling you, these guys already know their time is almost up. I remember when there was this crisis.
So this is their opportunity to turn things around. Is that what you're implying?
Sit with these people, get the much you can get.
Okay, let me move on to Ebon then. Ebon, this looks like a very interesting point he's making, but do you agree with it, that this is an opportunity for those whom some people will describe as spent, is an opportunity to actually get some of their wisdom
Well, it's difficult to categorize who is spent or who is not spent. My feeling is that if you look at the composition of the conference, it says elder statesmen, 1 from each state, plus the FCT, making 37. I thought that there's need for a balance. If you believe that somebody is experienced and has something to offer, he doesn't need to be there physically, as Mr. Bala has said. You could ask him to send a memorandum. You could ask him to send his opinions. You could aggregate his experience through other means, not in blocking the opportunity of the agile and active population. And if you are going to bring them at all, you then have to balance it in such a way that they will not constitute the majority of the decision making. In this conference now, the age bracket of 60 and above constitute about 60% of this particular conference in terms of composition, because they are filled up with retired people, former politicians, former governors. I'm not saying they have nothing to offer. I'm just concerned about the balance in terms of the representation. We only have representatives of the National Association of Nigerian Students, 6. National Association of Youth, just about 6. But having said that,
the population within the number, the statistics that we have is that there's just about 18 people who are supposedly representing the youths of Nigeria.
oh yes, that's
18
the point. That's the
out
point I'm
of
making.
490
Yes, now, but it's even immaterial in terms of the composition. My own concern is whether we as Nigerians at this stage should be misled into thinking that an opportunity has come indeed for us to restructure. Because the major problem with Nigeria is the constitution, this current constitution that allows a sitting president to constitute and appoint the president of INEC that will conduct his own election, and to appoint all the commissioners of the states where he has vested interest as a sitting president. So I think that the major problem is how do we amend that constitution